Hello everyone, I'm Sina and welcome to my channel, Sina Draws. And in this new episode, I'm going to talk about these less known yet quite fascinating pens. And right at the beginning, it's worth mentioning that this very video and the videos that I'm going to make after it are the result of about a year investigation and collecting necessary materials. And I really do believe that most of necessary and practical points about these pens is mentioned in this series of videos. So as always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. And I'm really looking forward to reading your comments because they are the only way of interaction between you and me. Okay, without further ado, let's begin. Not much long before, without any digital drafting or graphics software available, these were the most sophisticated pens one could acquire, and as drafting was their most common field of use, they were generally called technical pens. But despite being mostly forgotten and replaced by disposable pens, these things are by no means obsolete or irrelevant. The quality of the material and craftsmanship went into these pens guarantees their superior performance over their modern counterparts. To keep these videos as short as possible, I decided to analyze each category of pens in a separate video. In this very first episode, we will talk about Pazent pen, rolling pen, and stencil or lettering pen. And in the next episode or episodes, we will discuss relatively modern technical pens with more emphasis on less known ones. Models like these ones that, despite their potentials, were mostly ignored. For example, this Urograph with quite impressive and sleek packaging, and well made, high quality fountain pen style pens, or this Polygraph with its resin ergonomic diamond shaped body, or the Pentel Ceranomatic with its unique tip, or the Staedtler robust Mars series with almost unbreakable bodies, and the list goes on. And I'm quite confident you're going to be completely surprised by unknown potentials of these pens. First, let's have a quick review of what you're about to watch in this video. I will discuss all three pens beside each other to have a better idea of their capabilities. And everywhere needed, some other practical points will be mentioned during the video. And at the end of each section, some actual artworks done using each pen will be displayed. And at the end of this video, I will reveal the content of my next video. To have a better idea of the characteristics and abilities of each pen, I have decided to test them beside each other on a single sheet of paper. So we have Pazent pen, rolling pen, and stencil or lettering pen all beside each other. Let's start with the most peculiar one, which is the Pazent pen, that I believe is the least known amongst them all. Initially, it was invented by someone named Dick Blick. His intention was to make a pen that was able to produce uniform lines regardless of the angle it was held in the hand. So he took a rolling pen which was quite regular in that era and modified it to this new shape and called it Pazent pen. These pens soon became quite favorable and were made in different sizes from broad to fine and sold singly or in different sets. The system of sizing and sorting them was a bit different from what was used later in production of technical pens. The bigger the number was, the finer the nib, exactly opposite to what was used in sizing technical pens later. For example, in later productions of Kufel and Essel, double O was used to mark a rather fine nib in comparison to Pazent pen, which was used to mark a notably broad pen. And this is a point you really need to pay attention to, especially if you're going to order them online. But as for their function, similar to a regular rolling pen, they all have a thumb screw that can open up or close that ink channel. It doesn't drastically affect the size of the line, but to my opinion, it's more a feature to control the amount of ink regarding the thickness of the ink. It can be opened up or closed down for thicker or thinner inks. And as for the kind of inks that can be used and how to ink this pen, actually, just like any regular rolling pen or dip pen, virtually any kind of inks like India inks, fountain pen inks, or acrylic inks can be used. And no major problem should occur. It's a simple pen with no fancy technologies. You just fill the cup on top of the pen with any kind of ink that suits you, and you're good to go. You can use an eyedropper like this, but my preferred method is using the Graphus ink bottle. You can even mix different ink colors inside that cup, or use them constantly one after another, and create amazing illustrations like this one. And there's another method that's worth mentioning here, and that's using a blunt nib syringe. You can take a medical syringe and use a plier to chip that sharp nib, and rub it on a sandpaper to create a blunt nib syringe. And don't forget, never use an actual sharp medical syringe. And if that's hard to do, you can use one of these proprietary syringes, which are designed to be used with fountain pen inks and their converters. You can either use the syringe to fill up your converter, or install the needle on the converter itself, and put it into the ink well and fill up the converter directly. And even in some cases with some fountain pens, the syringe body itself can be used as a converter. And because of the special design of the needle assembly, it can be installed on a variety of converters, from for instance Parker style to international Pelican style. But actually, as mentioned earlier, I prefer my own style, which actually is using the good old Graphus ink bottle. Just gently tap it on the ink cup of the pen and you're good to go. And it's really worth mentioning that you really don't want to dip this pen into the ink, as the outer part of the nib becomes inky, and this way you can't completely control the ink flow, or the ink can easily run under your ruler if you're planning to use it with a ruler. So the best way of inking this pen is filling the upper cup with ink and not dipping it into the ink. And to better grasp the precision of this pen, I'm planning to use it with this Linux line spacer or hatching ruler. And you can vividly witness the result, which is quite astonishing. And you can also use this pen like any regular dip pen for calligraphy or lettering or anything else. Now it's time to use it in a more serious project. This time I want to put ink on the pen using an eyedropper. It's basically the same method to ink the pen, only the tool has changed, to demonstrate the flexibility and convenience of using this pen. As said before, I used the Linux hatching ruler or the line spacer to demonstrate the ability of this pen to produce uniform lines, which is actually the idea that this pen was designed around. And actually, as you can vividly witness, some 130 years on, this pen can easily keep up, if not overtake, with modern competitors. But the really important point that needs to be noticed here is that this pen does a lot with real simple setup. And for example, producing such broad lines is only possible using a marker these days, which obviously are disposable, and I'm not a real fan of using disposable materials. And here is the final result to have a better idea of what I'm talking about. I intentionally used craft paper because the white ink, which as you know is the most troublesome ink, really shows itself on it. But the problem with craft paper is that its rough surface wears out most disposable pen's nibs, which actually is not the case with Pazent pen because obviously it's all metal and never wears out. So no matter the surface you're working on it, this pen is virtually immune to any damages. And as you can vividly witness, regardless of the surface or the ink, this pen does its job almost flawlessly. It produces uniform, precise lines and quite convenient to use. It doesn't have any consumable parts and is almost maintenance-free. Actually, Humble is the right word if I were to describe it in a word. And now is the rolling pen turn, which is one of the oldest drawing and drafting tools. It's quite simple, and that simplicity has made it one of the most convenient pens to use. It's simply made of two arms that the spacing between them can be changed easily using a thumb screw. The ink is simply held between two arms due to the surface tension of the ink, and the size of the line it produces is determined by changing the spacing between those two arms. And actually, like this, you can produce a variety of line widths with only one single pen. There are also bident or trident models available that parallel lines with different sizes and spacings can be drawn using only one single of them. It's a real simple design, and due to that simplicity, it will never become obsolete. Actually, there was a time that at least one of these pens were available in any compass set. Most of the rolling pens available inside one compass set had modular parts, meaning they were interchangeable with each other. So you could install one of these rolling pens on the compass itself or on the handles available inside it. So if you're planning to acquire compass sets, I really suggest these older all-metal vintage models. It's really important to pay attention that in some newer compass sets, the rolling pen was replaced with this special tool that was used to put a technical pen on a compass. And the reason is obvious because from somewhere on, rolling pens, despite all of their functions and abilities, started to be replaced by modern technical pens in almost all drafting and architectural offices. So if you're planning to acquire a compass set, and it's important to you that it comes with rolling pens, take this point into consideration. Obviously, if you only need a rolling pen, you can acquire it in single packages like this, which obviously are not comparable to the vintage models at all, quality wise. What I have here are some different models of rolling pens that I'm planning to compare them together. The professional models have some sort of dial on the screw. This way, you will never lose the setting of the lines you were drawing. And you can always reset your pen to any desired line size, which is actually a quite useful feature. And some of them have a leg or arm like this that can be used to sit the pen on while inked. And as you can witness here, the newer non-professional model lack that dial screw feature. And so you need to do all the line setting approximately, which is not going to be precise enough, obviously. In this case, you may need to acquire more than one pen, eliminating the need to constantly changing the line setting so that your line sizes doesn't change during one project. But my suggestion is acquiring the ones with dial screw, which are way more convenient to use. Rolling pens were produced with plenty of different nib shapes. Straight, curved, long, short, the list goes on. And if you're going to use them professionally, maybe you have to acquire more than one nib shape. But if not, probably only one can does the job of all others approximately. And as for the inking, there is a real important point, and that is you never dip this pen into the ink. Because this way, the outer part of the nib is going to be inky as well. And when applied beside the ruler, all of the ink is going to run under the ruler, something you definitely don't want to happen on your project. So to ink this pen, the preferred method is to put ink on them instead of dipping them into the ink. And for that, you can use a rapidograph ink bottle or a graphus ink bottle, or you can use proprietary syringes I already introduced to you. And as long as the ink stays only between the two arms, everything should be okay. And let me tell you something about the case I just used to hold my rolling pens inside. It actually belongs to a compass set, something like this, which the compass itself was somehow damaged or lost. And the interior was not in a good condition as well. So I just replaced them with this puffy cloth, creating this useful case. Okay, let's take a look at the actual jobs that can be used using these pens. As mentioned earlier, different line sizes can be produced using only one pen. So, for instance, one of their applications can be drawing a frame around your paintings or artwork. Or you can even step further and combine them with the Linux hatching ruler to create the illusion of transition from dark to light or vice versa by using different line variations or spacing between them. The application of rolling pens is not limited to what just mentioned, and they can easily be used for drawing just like any other regular pen. And as they can produce different line variations if held in different angles, really amazing illustrations can be done using them. But mastering their system of producing line variation takes a bit of exercise, so don't get frustrated soon. The basic difference between Pazent and rolling pen is in the width of the lines they can produce. While it's more convenient to draw broader lines with Pazent pen, rolling pen performs better in producing finer lines. Actually, where one pen ends, the other begins. Pazent is able to produce lines broader than even some markers, and rolling pen lines even finer than some modern technical pens. And as the nib is all metal, they both can be used on virtually any surface, even rough ones. And obviously, they both don't wear out and will last you a lifetime. The only point while using Pazent and rolling pen is to keep the outer part of the nib clean. So you need to put ink on the nib rather than dipping them into the ink. And this way, it's almost guaranteed that these pens always produce you precise, uniform lines. And when you're done, it's strongly recommended that you remove the excess ink using sanitation alcohol and don't apply water on the nibs. And that's all that you need to keep in mind while using these pens. Now we can compare the results of these two fascinating pens, meaning rolling pen and Pazent pen, all beside each other and have a better idea. And the last pen which is going to be addressed in this episode is the lettering or stencil pen. Actually, both terms are true and common. It only depends on where you live or the company of origin. And for instance here, the Rotring prefers the term stencil pen, while another company like Standard Graph calls it the lettering pen. So only different terms used to call a similar product. Initially, they used to be built like full-size pens. There was a huge needle in the center connected to a push button at the far end of the pen, a design that later was changed into a more compact one, which is the true predecessor of modern technical pens. I have different models of them here available, but as you can see, they all follow the same principle. There's a detachable tubular nib and a catch on the pen. The nib needs to be fixed on the catch. The catch is pivoted to the handle and can be fixed at relatively any desired angle. It has two arms that holds the nib in place. The nibs were produced in different shapes and sizes and were sold in boxes like these. And also some slightly different models like this were available that will be explained later. And most of them were companioned with some leaflets like these for some basic instructions. With some minor differences, all of them virtually follow the same principle. There's a hole through which the ink needs to be dropped in using an ink bottle like this or a proprietary syringe that was introduced before. And there's a tiny needle which its application is to conduct the ink through the sleeve. The rear cap can be unscrewed to remove the needle to clean the pen. And the body can be used even without the needle, as I'll show you later in this video. But be wary not damaging the needle while reassembling the pen. Just push it gently and let it find its path. And the proper way of putting the nib on the catch is so that the inking hole stays in the front, right between the two arms, so you can put ink in it easily. Some of the newer versions of these pens come with a little foot attached to them, similar to the rear end of a dip pen nib that lets them to be attached on a regular dip pen handle, eliminating the need to buy the lettering pen handle. There are also some proprietary dip pen nibs designed to receive lettering pens, but obviously in both of these two latter versions, you don't have any control over the angle of the pen. In all other aspects, all the pens follow the same principle, regardless of their brand of origin, with some minor differences in their appearance. Some of them have their piston and spring exposed. Some of them have covered the spring and left only the piston exposed. And some others have covered both the spring and the piston under a cap. But obviously, all of these only affect the maintenance of the pen and have minor impact on overall application of the pen. And people can decide which one best suits them. Between all the handles, this one has a little difference with others. It has a thumb screw that needs to be loosened and lets the angle of the catch to be changed freely. But obviously the proper angle is something between 30 and 60, depending on one's hand size or the angle of the surface. But as for the others, the catch is pivoted to the handle and can almost rotate freely. And if you notice, they have some sort of gear-shaped design that acts like a brake, making the pen able to hold the angle setting. Obviously, the two arms can rotate freely, but I don't see any point in doing that. Most of the pens come with a monopod, which obviously are detachable, but they are actually quite handy, especially if the pen is attached and is inked up. They can be used as a rest for the pen that virtually can hold the pen on your desktop at any desired angle. Most of them are made of metal and in some minor occasions of plastic, which actually is not good news, but it doesn't affect their overall application. Recently, I came across to someone who had designed some special converter for the lettering pen handles, giving them the ability to receive dip pen nibs and be used as oblique dip pen handles. I believe this piece is made by some sort of 3D printing, but all in all, it's really fun to see how some minor innovations can be quite effective. And as for the markings and the pens, it seems that there was no standard system in that era, similar to which later was used in technical pens. So each company has used its own system of markings. And for example, this one says 512, the other one 53S, while this one only says 3. So keep this point in mind, especially if you're going to order them online. And again, if you're going to order them online, be wary that there are plenty of knockoff versions being sold under the name of lettering pen or stencil pen. Do not mistake them for the genuine version. They're completely useless and fragile, and all those seem the same are not dependable at all. So do not be fooled by a lower price tag, because eventually you're going to end up with something like this. And again, there are some other products being advertised under the name of painting pen. These things, although seem to have decent quality at the first glance, are not practical at all, because either the needle is sold as a separate part which can get lost easily, or is stored at the back of the pen that is not convenient to use at all. So do not recommend acquiring them either. Okay, as said before, the pen is called lettering pen or stencil pen. And that is because it was initially designed to be used with stencils or templates like this one. But it doesn't mean that you can't use it like a regular technical pen. In fact, it has a quite buttery touch and slides on the paper. So let's use them in some actual works and watch the results. To ink them, you can use an eyedropper or a technical pen ink bottle, but my preferred method is the proprietary ink syringe that was introduced to you before. Just put it into the hole and push it down and you're good to go. Just like any regular technical pen, it can produce different line sizes. But as said before, it has way softer touch and quite buttery on the paper. And because it can be set into any desired angle, it virtually rolls inside any kind of template and doesn't smudge or leak at all. And again, just like any regular pen, you can use it for drawing. It produces juicy, uniform lines and virtually works pretty well with almost any kind of ink. You can change the ink or the nib easily during drawing, and the overall performance is quite satisfactory. At the end of this section, while you're watching some sample artworks done using the stencil or lettering pen, I feel the necessity to mention one major difference between this pen and the other two pens that was discussed in this video earlier. The Pazent and the rolling pen both have unique characteristics that justifies buying them anyhow. Such a thing can't be said confidently about the lettering pen. I mean, if you already have a set of technical pens, then buying a new set of lettering pens might seem unnecessary. Or if you're going to decide between acquiring one of these two, suggesting lettering pens over the modern technical pens might seem unwise as well. I mean, despite potential advantages of lettering pens, like being all metal and durable, or their convenience of use, there are some major drawbacks, like not being easy to carry around or lack of ink reservoir, that makes acquiring them instead of modern technical pens unjustifiable. But if you're planning to use them only on your desktop and ready to accept the problems that might be involved, then I will say they are quite useful and worth acquiring. These pens are all metal and quite robust, something that can't be said about modern technical pens that are made mostly out of plastic. And also, virtually any kind of ink like thick, thin, pigmented, metallic, etc. can be used flawlessly with this pen. Such a thing can't be said about modern technical pens. Well, now it's your turn to tell me and others your opinion about them. Okay everyone, this is the end of the very first video of the Technical Pen series. I really hope you enjoyed it and looking forward to reading your comments. And as for the next episodes, as said before, we are going to focus more on relatively unknown modern technical pens. Those who, despite their potentials, have stayed under the shadow of more known versions like rotring isograph. And believe me, you're going to be surprised by how useful yet unknown these pens are. Okay, many thanks for staying with me up until this moment. Take care, and till the next video, goodbye.